So I just told the insurance lady, we've been married 47 years, almost 48. We've camped since before that. And I don't think anything ever happened. So on Memorial Day, we got hailed on it.
Oh, no.
The other day, we're driving down the road, we get where we're going and notice one of the windows on the camera.
Oh, no.
So something must have got kicked up on her. I didn't drive it.
Oh.
Put duct tape over it.
Do what you gotta do. I remember duct taping hoses when I was, our hose didn't run ours. So my son moved to Missouri and he rented a used car. And the tire blew on the car told, and he ended up starting to get fires in the bush. So we had to stop and put out, he said, thank God people would pull over and we're helping them put out all these fires. It's like,
We're in Missouri. We're in Missouri.
down by Kansas City.
Okay.
Yeah. They made it to just after Des Moines when all the. Yeah, it's like,
Oh, Josh.
Good, you?
Well, extension was fun. I left my notes and
Trying to-
on the table.
So good. I'm glad it was. I'm sorry. It was supposed to be at the farm family's home because they have like an outdoor pizza
So
oven and all this stuff. And so that's what they were hoping to do was to have it. at
they
the
did
house.
tours afterwards. Like a,
Oh, did they?
yeah, but I had to be for that. And,
Becky.
Graham and I made it.
Greg.
Nice. Nice.
But
Couple that on top of being gone.
hey, Becky.
Oh, Becky, she's got the envelope for you, right? I gave it to Jen because I forgot my key at home.
Got a second?
Hey, how you doing? Can't talk to you. I have to talk to you about something. It came up on my calendar. Sure, if you're around, I'll be around. Or no, I'm in court this afternoon, but I can
We just went over to camper.
cabin.
Not the daycare committee. Not for daycare.
Built on county land?
Yeah.
When would you like to meet?
Yeah.
So him and your dad teaming up?
It's always really fun, but my dad.
No, but I'll make daylight, so.
That's what I wanted to know. I think they're just kind of.
Okay, I'll get it figured out.
Okay, folks, 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
A couple of announcements before we call the meeting in order. JJ was planning on being at a location in South Dakota, I believe, but his travel plans, he's in Montana yet. So he will not be taking part in the meeting. So we do have our meetings being streamed. And so we do have people and on live on video. So we do have people joining the meeting remotely. Be aware of that. And with that, we will call the meeting to order and we'll rise for the pledge.
No, there's a
Public
public
forum.
hearing for you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Like, there's an actual public hearing for you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And you are here because of the sale of the land?
Yes.
Yeah. And we have a public hearing scheduled for that, so, yep. And that brings us to the public forum. Is there anybody here from the public that wishes to speak? Not in relationship to a public hearing? Anybody online, Ryan? All right, we'll move on to adopting the agenda. We've got some things to remove and things to add.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if we could remove regular agenda item number 7, the 2023 budget discussion, and we're planning to move that to the August 16th regular board meeting. And then to the consent agenda, item 3C, if we could add new hire of a part-time corrections officer. And consent agenda item 4C, Association of Minnesota Counties Fall Policy Conference approval to attend for commissioners and the county administrator. And then if we could add to 8A of the regular agenda, consideration of a letter of support for Frontier Communications for a broadband project application.
What's going on? 8A.
8A.
I'll move as amended, Chair.
A second it.
Okay, we got a motion made and seconded to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval, looking for approval of the minutes of July 19th, 2022 regular county board meeting and summary for publication.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Lovegren, second by Moore. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes of boards, reports and correspondence, the Pine County Surveyor's Monthly Report for July 2022.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ludwig, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moves us on to the consent agenda. You've had those items in front of you for several days with the additions. Look for a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Brings us up to the regular agenda, which is the tax forfeited sale of public land on a public hearing, which is commencing now. We'll have a presentation by staff, which is going to be Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the Pine County land tax forfeit land management program, just to give you a background of how this works, what our reasoning of what we do is. So just briefly, and then at the end, we'll talk specifically about the properties in question right now as well regarding the Wilma Township request not to sell the land. Okay, sounds good. So properties forfeit to the non-payment of taxes. Currently, once they don't pay taxes, it forfeits on the 4th year. When it forfeits for non-payment of property taxes, the title reverts to the state of Minnesota in trust for the local taxing jurisdictions. The land is managed by the county, so we have our county land department that does it. Currently, there's approximately almost 41,000 acres of land that is in this status. While no property taxes are levied on the land while it's in forfeiture status, we do receive a PILT for it at $2 an acre. 10% of this goes to the township or city, which the land is in. So we end up retaining about $1.80 per acre. And as we get further into the presentation, we'll show how that compares to the property taxes we would be collecting. As we manage the land, or as Greg and Joe manage the land, they are managing it for sustainable forestry practices, timber production and sales. Along with timber production and sales, we use it as gravel resources for our highway department, for our local townships. There's also, I mean, once in a while we have like agricultural leases on our property and different other things as well. We manage it for recreational use. And then we also have participated in some land sales or exchanges with the state of Minnesota and potentially private owners if they have a piece that maybe would work better with our holdings or whatnot. The first step in working with tax forfeited lands is for the board to classify them either as conservation or non-conservation. When you're determining what classification you're going to make them, this is the whole list, which I'm not going to read it, of things that Greg looks at each property and puts forth a recommendation as to should this property be conservation or should it be non-conservation. And we'll talk about what those classifications mean. So our conservation classification, it is essentially held for long-term management. And in Pine County, we've actually taken that a step further with a large portion of acreage and actually designated them memorial forest, meaning, yes, it's conservation. We're going to have it for long-term county management. However, our plan is also to hold it for a very, very long time, probably never sell it. And when we identify those properties for memorial forest, we are looking at a large acreage. So when you look at our memorial forest, they're large tracts of land. They might be multiple parcels, but it's large tracts together. We're looking at it for timber or resource potential. So sometimes those gravel potentials. Access. So sometimes we get properties that simply have absolutely no access. And so then sometimes it's difficult for us to want to retain them because we can't get to them. But Greg does a really good job at making some handshake agreements with neighbors to get access to properties. Environmental uniqueness. So you'll see some of our land that's on, next to rivers or things like that. And then public recreation value. And so we have some great lands out there for hunting and different recreational opportunities. Within this classification, these are the ones that all of them Greg's actively managing, but these are the ones that have planned cuts and thinnings and different things on them that actually brings in quite a bit of revenue.
Kelly,
Yeah,
so when we memorialize a block of land, it adds another step if it goes for sale or something. What?
correct. Yes, so when you memorialize something, the only way to unmemorialize it is through a public hearing.
So the public will be made aware.
Right,
If I can just add to that, that's a local requirement
right.
that the Pine County Board has added. That's not a state requirement.
Right, we add.
Non-conservation land, so this is the land that we've identified for short-term holdings, whether that's it used to be conservation and maybe we've gotten all of the potential and the resources off of it, and now we want to move towards potentially selling it. This is what you usually do in February and March of every year. Greg brings forth a list of properties that we want to classify as non-conservation, saying these are the properties that we are likely going to want to sell sometime really soon. When you guys do that, we have to notify the town or city of that classification change and our intent to sell. If they disapprove of that, then they can request a public hearing, which is why we're here today. The county board must allow persons to submit comments about those recommended changes. And you're going to consider applicable comprehensive plan. So Pine County, we have that comprehensive plan that we adopted some years back. So you're going to want to think about those things that came out on top: economic development, water quality, those types of things. And then after the testimony, the board will make a decision whether you really are going to want to move forward with reclassifying and potentially selling the property, or if you'd like to delay. So that's why we're here today. The parcels in question are these 4 parcels in Wilma Township that equal a total of 200 acres. On the south side, they are bordered by Duxbury Road, and on the east side, Duncan Road runs. So just to give you guys an idea, the large one, the 80, does have a lot of swamp on it. However, on the eastern portion, there is some okay land. Without these parcels, so if we take these 200 acres out of the mix, there are still almost 1,500 acres of tax forfeited land in Wilma Township. Almost 1,300 of those acres are currently classified memorial forest, and the board has committed to keeping them in public ownership. There's also 7 small lots in the town of Duxbury that sometimes we get those small lots. And so those are also there, worth mentioning, but yet not really the source of discussion. To get back to that income that we get from these properties. So we receive income from timber and land sales regarding these tax forfeited properties. And so just a history of the last, it looks like, I think 7 years of how much income we've brought into the county general fund, income into our schools, and income into our cities and townships. So almost $3 million into the county general fund and into our local schools, and almost 1.5 million into our local cities and townships, just by the management and sale that we've currently been working through. Looking at just Wilma Township specifically, since what this meeting's about. So again, over the last 7 years, we have had some property sales within Wilma Township. A lot of those have sold on contracts, and so the income comes in slowly over a potential of up to 10 years. But you can see there's a column here of property sale revenues that have come in over the last 7 years at almost $95,000. Timber sale revenues that have come in at just under 12,000 for a total of about 106,500 of revenues that have gone to Wilma Township due to our program that we run. I think it's always interesting to note to compare that to other revenue sources. So like in Wilma Township, their levies $35,600 a year over the same time period, or $249,000 that they directly had to ask the taxpayers to get, where this program brought them 43% of that without directly asking the taxpayers, people willingly purchasing land or us able to sell timber. Sale proceeds. So we've already talked about the fact that the sale proceeds go to 40% to the county, 40% to the schools, and 20% to the city or township. Just looking at the 4 parcels in question and what their appraised values are, what the intent was to put them on the auction for. When you look at the totals, it's kind of around that $5,000 to $7,000 range that Wilma Township will receive from the sales of these properties if they sell at their minimum price. Along with that, you look at that, but just note that the county will receive double that amount, and same with the local school districts as well, because we receive 40% and the schools receive 40%. All right, that's the end of my brief presentation. Questions?
Any questions from the board? Thank you. It's always a good reminder
Yeah.
to get that. No questions from the board. We'll open the public hearing and take public testimony. So this would be the Wilma County or Town Board's chance.
Is this on still? Wonderful. My name is Mike McCollum. I'm the Wilma Town Board. I have been for, I don't know, 20 years or something. I'm sent here by our board and our constituents of the area. We are always concerned about land being sold. Yeah, we do understand it lowers our taxes a little bit because you put more people on the tax rolls, and it helps the income of the county and our township. But they make no more land, and that's what we're most concerned about, is our grandkids and their grandkids and all that coming down the line. We have this much land right now, and that's county, and it keeps shrinking a little bit every year. And somewhere down the line in our generations coming up forward, other than this memorial land, which you guys have done a super job, and Greg and Kelly have done it, putting this aside with you guys, that's really wonderful. But every year it keeps shrinking a little bit. I know we had an issue a few years ago with a parcel of property where we all picked blueberries in the community. And we spoke about that at this meeting, and it is what it is, and it got sold because you guys had invested some money on buying this strip of land next to it to have access and everything. And right now I know of at least 3 families that don't pick blueberries there anymore because we can't go there. It's private. And we've got a lot of hunters out there. It's a lot of recreational land. We have a lot of cabin owners. I think we only had like 40 in Wilma Township itself. I think we only had 40 homesteaded properties, something on that order. And at our fire department pancake breakfast, we fed over 550 people. That's how many people show up in the community. And as we shrink this land down, it's just less land for people to be able to go to. And you guys all have more likely have kids and grandkids, and you're gonna have great grandkids and everything down the line. And we don't want to see that ever leave. And someday it's gonna all be gone if we take a little bit every year and sell it off. And they don't make no more land. And that's what our biggest concern is with our township, is we're always worried about that. And I understand we have a lot of land right now. What she explained is there's 1,500 acres as in county hands, and 1,300 acres of that is memorialized. So there's only 200 acres left. And 3 years ago or 2 years ago, when that last sale was done, we expressed concern, and the board kind of said, well, we're kind of getting done. We're not going to be selling any more land off, is what I understood at that meeting. And here we are again. I know Greg does a good job. He's out in the woods and stuff. I feel bad. He had called when I was out of town and I didn't get back to him before this meeting, but he would have told me a lot of the facts that I heard Kelly mention tonight. And they're wonderful facts at raising money for the county and the townships, but they don't make no more land. And that's what we're most concerned about. Someday there will be none, and our population isn't getting no smaller. It's increasing all the time. So that's our concern as a town board. Does anybody have any questions for me? We're just voicing our opinion for our town board and our constituents of our township.
I would like to commend you for your passion in protecting public land.
That's why I'm on the board. That's the number one reason I got on the board, is protecting land and roads in our area, because things happen and we just
The
don't.
four of us sitting here on the board believe in that. That's why we set those big blocks apart.
Yep.
And call them memorial forest.
And we really appreciate that an awful lot.
We it's a balancing act, Mike, and
Yep.
and so we appreciate your concern as a board and a board member personally. So, and thank you
Okay.
very much.
And like I say, I was asked to come here by our board and our constituents of the area, so that's why I'm here. And I do have a passion for it also, so. Okay, thank you.
It's very clear.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody got
Any other questions? I'm
questions
sorry.
for Mike? If not, anybody else from the public wish to speak on the subject? If not, we'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting and go back to the county board for any additional discussion items.
Mr. Chair, I got
Yeah.
one. Does this, by selling this, does it block anything? Or is it doesn't block access to anything?
Right, it puts it in private ownership, so
Yeah.
the public can't continue to go use it.
Okay, but just this, like, it doesn't block any access to stuff behind it or anything like that? Okay.
I think some of us have been up there more than once on Duncan Road and we know the property, I think, quite well. There has been some sold off of that road previously, right, Greg?
Over on the Schmedeke Lane.
Yeah. Yeah.
They at one point were contiguous properties that connect.
Anybody else got anything? If not, we would be in consideration of the resolution at hand. 22-44. Pardon me?
You're reaffirming your previous resolution of 22-10. Up on 1F.
Yep.
I will move to reaffirm resolution 2022-10.
I will second that.
Thank you. I'm sorry to confuse you. I was down a couple of lines. We got a motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we'll move on to Advisory Committee report. Who's gonna give that one? Pardon me?
Any comments?
Yeah,
I want to thank the board for hearing me out.
yeah,
And I understand this passed and it's gonna be sold, which we understand and everything like that, but for me coming here, I want you guys to just be thinking, to give the people in the future also, down the road, and speak like this, that we are concerned about the people, and I want you guys to realize that's why we're here.
and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really
And I
do.
wanna thank you guys too for the time, but I just want that clear that that's why we do this, is,
No, you did a really nice job.
well,
Yeah.
so you guys, but
Yeah.
we're all the same, like we born. I mean, the sheriff just said that a little while ago.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
You want me to start that?
yep, go ahead.
Yeah, we had our land zoning advisory committee meeting on 15 July. And we approved a public land sale and adjoining owner land sale and county fee owned land sale identified in the following resolutions. And I know we kicked it to, we were gonna talk about this last. I find all my notes, but. Do you have to forward the pack?
You know what, I think I left.
I have, well, I have it somewhere. Anyway. Yeah. So, yeah, the track. So anyway, the resolution 2022-42 is a land auction sales term for, that one is. Yeah. It's Bruno Township, Danforth Township, Carrick Township, and they're small landlocked parcels and no legal access parcels. And resolution 2022-43. Windermere Township. They're blocks and lots up like in Hogan's Acres area. Two of those, Brook Park Township, they're small parcels. And then 2044 is the one we had all the discussion on, I think, with parcel. Well, maybe we may have that one separate, but anyway, all the blocks, and I don't know if you guys saw those in the pack before, but
Is that the outlot for access to Cross Lake?
that one is on the
So,
Jackie's Edition.
yeah, so Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yeah,
so 43 is the adjoining landowner auction, that resolution. And so that is where the Jackie's Addition parcel lies, is within that resolution.
That are the small chunk one.
Right, yep,
Yes.
the adjoining landowner auction. 22-44 is actually just for a piece of county fee land. So a property that the county has owned for a number of years. And it's determined that we have no use for it. It's a nice 20-acre piece of property. And so we would include that one with the tax forfeit auction, but it just has to have separate terms and conditions because it's not tax forfeit.
Yeah, so we talked about, the one that hung us up was when we went back to discuss was the access to Cross Lake.
right. And I'm still concerned about that because I don't believe there's a good alternative.
Well,
For
there's two alternatives, right?
Have you driven on those alternatives in the wintertime?
Okay, well, what we agreed to do, Steve, in
Yeah.
our meeting was this. There's that covenant or whatever you
Yep.
want to call it on that properties there. So we're just gonna offer it for sale to that group of people.
Right,
And if they choose to have it, keep it as a winter access, they can do that, you know. Otherwise, we're gonna have to at some point, if we have it and we would be maintaining access on a lake in a sense, right? And I don't know if we want to do that or not.
I don't either, but I know there's a lot of people. It is the preferred access because it's a safe access. And the only other decent access is on the north end which is kind of a steep approach. Greg and I drove out there in the winter and it's a very usable access and it's fairly close to fishing, but I know the city has talked about reopening the access and
But that's the river issue, right?
there's a river issue there. It's early ice is really bad and treacherous across the river. The other access that people do use is off the end of Crooked River Road. And that is a nightmare to try to get up.
What I don't know the answer to is if the people that live in that development, that's,
Yeah.
if they've ever had a chance to buy that, buy their ownership on their access. And it's like, we own such a small parcel.
1/16 or 3/16 ownership.
Yes, so.
But it does allow people to legally access the lake.
So Steve, can I ask,
Yep.
when those people were using that access to the lake, did they know that the county owned the 3/16 or did they believe that it belonged to all those property owners?
I can only speak from my own experience.
Yeah.
I thought I was gaining access there because I happen to know somebody that's one of the 1/16 owners. And so I don't know if that person even know that the county had a 3/16 ownership in it.
See, I don't know if us selling that is really gonna make a difference. I can't see them gating that. So, I think.
Well,
that a lot of
I
people
do know
just-
that occasionally people have put up signs that says this is private. You cannot use this or something.
That's my concerns, because these other people all paid for that.
Right.
And it's theirs. And the county owns one sliver through whatever forfeiture, or whatever, so we're dictating something where private people say, we have this as a private enterprise, that they own it.
I understand
So
that.
that's where I'm saying we
just
don't wanna
think-
get into that.
As we talk about economic development. And the number of people that use that lake in the wintertime, I don't know that anybody's ever launched a boat, think it's a summer launching site. It's a winter access point. And it's,
I know if I would have paid to have my access there as part of a private development, and then people were pouring through my backyard, or basically, I would say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
That's where I'm hung up.
I get it, I understand it.
And that's where I am too.
Yeah.
When they bought their property, they all thought that was theirs.
I understand it.
Yeah, I know.
I'm hung up on the part that.
Yeah.
We by default ended up with a public access. And I'm all about access to property for people that don't own the property, much like Wilma Township was talking about. And we haven't worked with anybody to get an access to that lake.
So if the township owns something,
The
that's a
township-
public access, maybe they can develop that at some point.
It's just, it's partly on the wrong part of the lake. It's partly because of the grade to get to the lake.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I don't know that this is gonna help make your decision, but I'm just reviewing the PowerPoint that Kelly just went through, and of those points that the county considers when evaluating whether to keep or sell tax forfeited land, it's sustainable forest practices, timber production, and recreational use.
Recreation.
So this, I think legitimately, it's a hard decision because that is one of the enumerated uses that you'll consider.
Yeah, but typically when we hold that, it's.
And I
it's the same owner, we're
appreciate-
Not going over somebody else's
I
property.
appreciate all the work you guys did on it and the land committee, and it's not about that at all. And if we,
We went through all the other
Yep.
parcels before.
Yep.
but, Yeah, but that's the one that hung us up. so.
Yep.
Well, and on this one, we had talked about offering it to the people that did not have that 1/16 interest.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be, and
right, I couldn't buy it,
Right.
right. Okay. We do all those resolutions in one motion.
Are you ready for a motion?
Do them together.
See if it can be one.
We
Can
could,
be one.
somebody could offer a motion to do all those resolutions in one.
I will move all three of those, 2022-42 through 2022-44.
I'll second that.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and I am gonna vote no, just because I can.
Yep.
And then the land people, Kelly, you will notify the Department of Natural Resources, or Greg will. That's part of the deal. Okay, Technology Committee meeting. You wanna talk about that, Josh? You want me to?
Let me get caught up here. Yeah, we did have a meeting last week. I was all excited to go into the new Steve Chafee conference room, but I ended up getting sick. So I joined the technology committee meeting via technology. So, which was good. But we had discussion on the 2023 budget for the ID department. Just talked about all the projects he's got and how much money that Kelly's spending this year with the tax and camera project. No, but just kind of went over that, getting that ready for our budget discussion. We talked about hardware replacement schedule. The county used to be on a 3-year, like all our computers and stuff. We talked about Ryan's looking at going to like a 4-year replacement schedule. And that should help, budgeting. Of course, everything's going up in price, but we're looking at about a $20,000 a year savings. He will have plenty of backup. The problem going to 4-year is what was it? The warranty. Most of the warranties are 3 years, so
Yeah.
we'll be a year on our own, but he's thinking with all the extra stuff we have, we can probably cover that or just pay for it, and it won't be that big a deal. And then the county is in a audit for security, and we were one of 2 in the state, I
Yeah.
think is what it was. Oh, yeah, Ryan,
Yeah.
you're here. And it's an FBI audit. Sorry, I'm still a little fuzzy, but and what was it? You said everybody you had talked to didn't know of ever having this. So it was us and Carleton County are in this audit. And so Ryan's been working through that, and he said it's been going good. So so it's just interesting that happened. But
I think as I talked to some of my old colleagues from my school days, network security has risen from something you're kind of worried about to being like the thing you have to worry about and need to worry about. And we need to, as a board, support them in their efforts, because I think we all noticed in the update, MCIT is not going to offer coverage for security breaches, which Ryan is working with some companies to secure insurance coverage on that. But I'm sure the less players you have in the game, generally the more it costs. And it's because we deal with people's lives and sensitive data, we have to be more diligent probably than anybody. We like to think everybody is honest. Nobody's going to steal anybody's information, but that is not the case, we know.
So can I add to that? When I was out at NACO, they were talking about cybersecurity and all of the stuff that's going on. And it's like a city that had to pay multi-million dollars to buy all their information back. And you don't know if you get it all back.
Yeah.
So they were talking about all of these things that were happening out there. And I do have to say that every time I get something, I send it to Ryan. He goes, yep, we're doing that. Yep,
Yep.
we've got that. And so I just am very thankful that we have our IT department that we have and that they're on top of things the way that they are.
How many times a day are we hacked or attempted?
Well, one of the things, our very best line of defense is where we get our network services from the state of Minnesota. They have, they were an early adopter of cybersecurity measures, and they detect thousands a day of scams and people trying to get into our systems statewide, but it affects us in Pine County. And so,
Well, and I think every conversation of cybersecurity has to fall back to the individual computer user is our most important critical defense.
One click.
Yep.
The key.
And so being ever vigilant is the norm, and always, encouraging employees to be suspicious of those emails and those email links.
I think we've all called Ryan and said, what is this?
I've learned to just forward it to him and he'll tell me if I should open it or not.
That's good. At least we learned something.
Right.
And just one more comment. So we have had conversations on the liability insurance. It seems like the marketplace is still has companies willing to provide that cyber coverage. We'll have to do some work to get, good quotes and whatnot. But it seems like part of the issue that MCIT has is they have so many different users that to put together a single policy that covers the 400-ish entities, I think is the number they had of entities that they're providing coverage for, is challenging.
Thank you. No other questions on that. We'll move on to the Health Insurance Committee report.
Want me to start this one?
You might do better than I did.
So it was a very interesting meeting. We talked about where we're at. We're dipping into our reserves already this year. I want to say the amount was 25,000. And Kelly, how did July look? I mean, we heard June was horrible, but we couldn't ask you about July.
So I was just talking to Dave and Jackie about this morning. So July was horrible. So July started out horrible. And then the last 4 weeks have either been very large credits or very small bills. So it's very strange. I do not know what's happening. I mean, like 1 week there was like $140,000 credit. It's like they reprocessed claims. So I guess that's the good news. July was much better because we only had 2 bills. One was 14,000 and then one was kind of in the regular range.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So that's good news.
Yeah, we're wondering at the meeting and it's like, oh, she's teaching people how to be election judges. No. Yeah.
I think what reading through the minutes from the meeting, because I'm always interested about that. The thing that always strikes me is we're in a better spot than we were because we're able to have the discussion about the rates instead of just being told this is your rate. And so we know we've saved 250, 300,000 right off the top in administrative fees. So I think we have to keep that in mind all the time.
Right.
And I always look back that no matter what, we're gonna pay.
Yeah,
Like if we were, so, they would get us the next year, like when they,
yeah, you either,
and we're up, and we're saving the management,
right,
the fixed cost management of like over $250,000 every year.
and we're in it for the long term, so it's either you pay now or you pay later, and I think we'll be okay.
Well, so with United Healthcare, they came in at a proposed 18% interest from where we are today, which was the highest. Medica proposed a 17% interest and Blue Cross Blue Shield proposed a 7.7%. And we all know that the services with Blue Cross Blue Shield were better than what we're getting with United Healthcare. So then what Justin said, because we're already dipping into our reserves, which we need to get those reserves increased, we need to have a good reserve. He suggested that 10% would be the minimum that we would want to go. My brain is saying we should look at more like 12%, because last year we didn't put any money into the reserves. We didn't go anywhere above, and instead we're dipping into the reserves. So if we went 12%, we would kind of make up for what we didn't do last year. And I know it's more money, but that was when we set this up, what, 3 years ago now? It was agreed to that we would get the reserves where we needed them to make sure that we were covered if anything happened. And this year showed us that things can happen. So that's kind of it in a big nutshell, is that those were the increases that each one offered. Even if we went 12%, we're still under what Medica or United Healthcare were offering us, which is good. The other thing we were talking about, the vision, they did a vision survey for people who use for eyeglasses or contacts. And so we decided to change that. We're going to raise that from $130 benefit to a $200 benefit. And we're going to go through a different company because they offer more facilities that people can get their glasses through. Did we go through?
That was the main point.
Yeah.
The rate discussion, I think, is something we're gonna have to have.
Yeah.
And which becomes a strategy.
Right.
And it's all you look at it, because we would pay if we weren't doing this, we'd be paying it anyway, and then we'd still be less probably than what we'd be paying anyway. But anything we grab, we can return to, or if we come out ahead, lower the rate than the following year easier.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
So I think just following up on Matt's comment, the committee thought that the road forward going back to Blue Cross Blue Shield was pretty clear, and there's no reason to not make that decision whenever you're comfortable with it. The rate discussion, the committee asked for some additional information from Justin. Justin got that to us. It was either Thursday or Friday of last week, and I'm guessing most of us haven't digested it yet. And the committee potentially could review that again if desired. The rates don't have to be set until August or late August or early September. So there's a little bit of time there if you wanted to give a decision on the carrier, and then let the committee have another few weeks to review the rates and see if there's a consensus or a recommendation. You can do that.
I would be happy with that. If
What was that, Steve?
I would be happy with moving forward with changing to Blue Cross.
Yeah, we would highly recommend
And
it.
then let the committee chew on the rate structure for a little bit longer. Let us all chew on it a little bit and give you some advice and whatever that's worth.
So I will move to Blue Cross Blue Shield.
I will second that.
And do you want to do the vision at the same time
Yeah.
for MetLife?
MetLife, which gives us a lot more coverage throughout the county, top to bottom and close. I mean, it picks up like 10 more.
It was a big difference in who the providers were, where people could go to get their stuff.
Yep. And
So
that's
does
just-
everybody understand the motion?
Yeah, MetLife.
MetLife and the Blue Cross,
Blue Cross for medical.
any discussion on that? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That it? All right. Childcare strategic supply plan process. Is this,
Leslie is.
Leslie's gonna give us this one? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Leslie, your Economic Development Coordinator. I was contacted by First Children's Finance, seeing if we would want to participate in this program with them. It's no cost to us. And at the end of the program, we hopefully will have identified some projects that will expand childcare opportunities in our county, specifically in areas where maybe there's a deficit and we don't have enough slots to meet the need. Just a little background on it is that East Central Regional Development Commission did a few childcare studies in their service area. Pine County was one of them. The final report is coming out of that study. and we'll identify what communities or what areas we need to focus on. And I guess as I sat through their presentation of what this program is, it feels very similar to what we went through with Blandon and their broadband community program, where we pull together stakeholders in our community throughout the county to talk about childcare, what the needs are, and come up with projects that hopefully will either be funded through First Children's Finance or the Initiative Foundation, or DEED does have grants out right now for childcare. So we're hoping to go through this process in the next 4 to 6 months, pull a few dozen people together, and then talk about how we can expand childcare in Pine County. Would be out my time. About it.
I like it.
So I'd like to add to that.
Yeah.
We had our school district meeting
Yeah.
last week,
Yep.
and we talked to Hinckley School District. And they, I know when Rob was still the superintendent, he was looking into childcare there. We've lost 2 teachers in Hinckley because they don't have daycare, so they moved. The school board there is really on top, and they want to get moving on this because childcare is an issue. I think, well, we just heard Carrick, somebody in Carrick wants to start a daycare. It's an issue all over the place. And so I would like to make the motion that we look into this and start the childcare strategic planning process. Was there a resolution that there's not a resolution that went with this, but I'd like to give permission to move forward with this. Leslie.
I would second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on it?
And Mr. Chair, there's not a resolution, there is a memorandum. So
Okay.
this resolution will be approving that memorandum.
I just got one question for Leslie. So you're gonna reach out to try to find some stakeholders in this then, and
Yeah, I've reached out to Nikki Weiner here at the county too, and she's going to help me because she is our childcare licensor. So she's got some pretty good connections in the community. So we'll start from there. The 2 of us will take team it.
sounds good.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions, discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Rock Lake Monitoring Joint Powers Agreement.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Yep.
So about every 10 years, the MPCA collects surface water samples from tributaries, lakes, rivers, that type of thing. And so currently they're moving on to Rock Lake and its tributaries. And so they always look for local partners to actually collect the samples, the water samples, and send to the lab. And so we have before you a joint powers agreement for the Pine County Zoning Office to be the sample collector. We have no costs that we incur because the lab testing costs and all the supplies are covered. However, we are in kind with our time in doing it.
But our time will benefit our residents in
I-
Rock Lake.
I think, Terry, it's bigger than that. I think what it is going to do, and we gotta wait and see what the studies find, but we've talked for a long time with all these programs we have. Where is it
Right.
coming from?
We
Where
need-
is the problem being? And everybody's guessing and they're all pointing at, it's that farm over there, it's that development over there, it's that town over there. Let's get some science behind it and say, you're all wrong. It's coming from here, you know?
And that's exactly what this will do.
And this is getting some feet on the ground. I think it's the first, well, we've had several projects, but it's a major project for the Lower St. Croix thing, and that I got a whole dissertation I could give you on how hard it is to move through that process of voting on stuff. But I think this is a great start of a project that we could might have long-lasting benefits. So,
You're looking for a motion?
yep,
I'll move that.
A second.
got a motion by Moore, second by Lovegren. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Set time for August 30th meeting. You can read there. We've had some things that came up that the 25th isn't gonna work, but the 30th seems like it will.
I can move that.
A second it.
Motion by Moore, second by Lovegren, change the 25th to the 30th. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I can't even read my own scribbling.
Frontier letter of support for.
Oh,
the
yeah,
border
broadband.
application.
Broadband is what I wrote. Okay. Offer or authorize our administrator, David Menke, to sign or write a letter of support to Frontier Communications for a border grant. Even though some of us aren't as happy as about it, I think it's a worthy thing. If you're a customer of theirs, we need to support what they may be able to pull off. So.
And I appreciate Dave bringing me down and reminding me that some people only have Frontier, so I'll make a motion to send that letter.
Thanks, Terry.
And that's up in this near Sturgeon Lake area.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore, for a letter of support to Frontier Communications. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let's see. I'm gonna take the ones I'm involved with in case I have to peel out, but Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails, I think we got the meeting was not available on Zoom like it said it was, so Pine County did not participate. I'm gonna skip down right now to the PTCC scholarship afternoon. David gave a little speech, and then of course I had to say something. It was really great to see the students that were receiving the scholarships, the people that helped get the students in track. Everybody wants these students to be successful. And I think it was really a great time to have a chance to talk a little bit with Dennis Franson and his vision for helping a lot of first generation people further their education. Every job almost that we have at the county takes some kind of technical skills. And so anything we can do to help elevate our students, I think is what we need to be doing.
I'm gonna add, Dakota County has taken this on too. They're not doing the scholarships for the graduates, but they are doing the workforce grants, so that they said they're trying to get people more education and, hoping to keep people in the community, which came off of what Pine County had done. So we do have at least one other county that stepped up and took on the initiative.
And I know many more have contacted David about,
Right.
tell us some more. So
Yeah. Yep.
I think it's a good thing. In the school district meeting that we had with the school districts in the county and Pine Tech, and we had a tour of Pine Tech and a chance to communicate with, got a lot of new leadership. I think almost every school has a new superintendent. New principals and we know some of those people because they worked in other areas of the school, but it's always good to reconnect with them. And we do a lot of things. And I think we've all come to the realization that Becky's got staff that are in those schools every day of the school year. Jeff has staff in those schools every day of the school year. And our probation people are there. We need to have a good working relationship with those schools. We may not have realized how much we do together, but I think we do now. So I think it's a great time to get together. Central Minnesota Council on Aging. We set the budget and had a review of our director, and they've got all these programs. It's very the Older Age American Act puts these monies in silos, and you can't, even though you're running out of money for home delivered meals and you got money in congregate dining meals, in my mind, you would just do it. But you gotta go through the steps and procedures of transferring the money through board action to get that done. So the thing that we've learned since the pandemic is that the reliance on home delivered meals has shot way up exponentially in central and east central Minnesota. And Pine County is part of that demographics that has so many people that have matured into the 65 and plus age. We're trying to keep those people living in our homes as long as we can. And one of the things we can do are these home delivered meals. And they've come up with some very, very creative way to provide really good meals for people. And I know Becky's been part of some of those, and it takes a whole team to get that stuff done. But now we'll go back up to Snake River Watershed.
I did in the backseat of a car, so here's my notes.
We skipped extension.
Oh, extension, I'm sorry.
I'm excited.
Extension, okay, get on it, Matt.
So first of all, I want to thank you guys for being gone so I could go. That's the first time I went to an extension meeting.
Nice.
That's an awesome group.
Yeah.
Anyway, we met in Carrick and there was a pile of kids just finishing a summer camp and they were doing math and science and nature stuff. And that was kind of cool. So they were leaving the space as we were coming in. On the county update on our last board meeting, the dollars we spent in broadband, and I explained that kind of stuff and explained our staffing issues and what the jail could do if there's kids in the community up there and that kind of stuff. So that went good. And then Sarah Odendahl gave a presentation on 4-H, which was amazing.
She's good.
And how it doesn't have to always be with farms. And she went in depth, we can help do any kind of program, and you need at least 3 kids and that kind of stuff, and they can build. But that was really fascinating to me too. And the other thing I want to make sure I mention is the Dipman and Mast. It was their farm that they were going to go to, but I didn't go.
Okay.
But they are interested, well, the whole group is interested in starting a daycare. And there was there was a lot of kids there. I didn't get a head count, but there was a lot of kids in that community. So I said, hey, we have to connect. So you two have to make sure you connect that dot back with her.
Okay. Was that with Sarah?
No, Mast was the gal up there,
Okay.
but Sarah somebody would have that. I didn't
Okay.
grab her name.
Suzanne would have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a thing I want to make sure we connect the dots to go to Becky. The daycare is needed on that. But anyway, kudos to our Odendahl. She did a great job.
She's good.
I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair.
She's our new
Thank
4-H
you.
director, and she is very good.
Yes, she's awesome, and I have to get to another appointment,
Okay.
but Josh will take over. Before I leave, I just want to publicly thank Terry for taking time out of her life to go advocate for Pine County. I used to say little old Pine County, but we are a force to be reckoned with in this nation on moving things forward. And we have, I believe, sometime in the future, not too long, we're going to see that needle move on broadband development from being 86 out of 87 to being somewhere in the middle of the pack, and maybe even towards the top, because we got some good things cooking. And thank you, Terry, for taking time out of your life to do that. But thanks, Josh.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Okay, well, we'll go back to Snake River Watershed. We'll let you.
So Snake River Watershed, there isn't any change in the budget, and they didn't have it, but it's the same as what it was in April, and I didn't go back and look. What they did do was, there is a farmer in Kanabec County that wants to plant some winter crops. because his land is starting to erode and it's going into the watershed. And so it was approved that we would give him, I believe it was $27,000. It's $9,000 per year to plant those summer crops. And then we're also looking at having a public hearing in Pine County before one of our board, I think it's going to be before September 5th. Board meeting to hold a public hearing about the Snake River watershed so that we can get that moving. So that'll be coming in the future.
Maybe it will be September 6th.
Is it the 6th? Yeah.
What's the premise?
Like I
for
said,
the
it was the
public
back
hearing?
seat of my car while I was driving.
No, that's fine. I just,
No, back seat. No. While I was riding home, yeah.
What's the premise for the public hearing?
Well, because it needs to be approved by everybody. And so if we hold a public hearing here, then our residents will have an
Oh,
opportunity.
I see.
Otherwise, it's only going to be a public hearing in Kennebec, and we wanted to open that up to more. Yeah.
Everybody that's affected because it covers the.
Right. And we've got Pokegama Lake and Cross Lake, and then all of the Snake River that goes through. So we've got a big area that's in that watershed. So it would be nice if our residents would have the opportunity to come and speak.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, NLX.
And Alex, so I guess I didn't go last month, neither one of us went last month, and I guess if they have a new billboard, if you down by North Branch, if you're heading southbound, and I was gonna pay attention and look, and I didn't do that. But they are looking at doing a budget increase for up 30% for 2023 for all the people that pay in, because they want to do a lot more advertising. They believe that the legislature is going to have a special session after the August election. They figured that they're going to go back. I abstained from that vote and they weren't very happy with me, but I said that we're not paying members. I'm not going to vote to have everybody else's stuff raised 30%. So they believe that they're one of the first few shovel-ready projects, so they're pushing to go forward with federal funding. And that was about it. A lot of it was what they're spending the money on. They're
Did
gonna
they-
be at the county fair.
Oh, did they pass? Did it pass unanimously then?
For
The
the-
increase?
I don't know.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I needed to leave, so,
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if they truly had a quorum.
Okay,
There was, the city of Minneapolis, no, Hennepin County is looking at joining. But as of right now, they had them voting, but as of right now, they haven't actually gone through the process of joining. And then with me abstaining, I don't know if they had a quorum to do that.
okay. Sounds good. All right. Pine County Housing and Redevelopment Authority and Economic Development. Authority.
Can you fill in some gaps? It was pretty much a general meeting at the front end. And then Leslie gave the verbal, the
short-term rental.
Airbnb and that whole presentation again to that board, which was interesting, for a different perspective for them and the impact on the area. And then the new management group explained this OCAF sheet. Cost of like living adjustment for the rent adjustment that happens, and it's the worksheet they go through. And they voted it, in the end, it was a 3.2 increase on the rents that are going into the building. And then there was discussion always on how the new management is taking over, and Kelly is, I think they transferred another fund, some dollars to Kelly to handle the management through the public. Where before it was in the private sector. Remember, we pulled it out of there. I think you had that report. So it's much better managed that way. And I don't know, I think that's about all I got out of that, Dave.
Sure, I would just add a reminder that when we met with them in January, I think it was January, and did some strategic planning, we had committed to doing that on an annual basis targeting October. And so if we were going to hit their annual meeting, it would be October 26th. It doesn't have to be that date, but I'm just throwing that out there to keep in your minds. And we have been working every month, and Leslie has kind of been our program coordinator, but getting various presentations on housing and development related topics, helping that board just, grow their knowledge and understanding of housing and development in the county and what they may be interested in doing. So now that we have transitioned the management team and Jolene and her staff are pretty much on board, it really is going to be a challenge, I think, for us to lay out our expectations, or for you to lay out your expectations of what you expect this board to be doing for housing and development. And so I just wanted to throw that out there for the next, couple of months to be thinking about that. Because when we do our annual strategic planning, that is, that would be the focus as to what are our goals and expectations for the next year for this board. And I know when we went through the planning process of creating this joint EDA HRA, there was an expectation that they would become a leader in housing and economic development.
Yes. And at what point does we have a committee for economic development too, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and that committee has really morphed into liaisons. That's you and JJ, Matt and JJ, who are the liaisons.
Okay.
Well, no, because when is the liaison to this committee? So JJ, that's why we
Right,
have the
he's
two
that one,
commissioners
right,
on there,
yeah.
yeah.
So I think we did away, I don't think we appointed anyone to the committee in January. I mean, I could check the list, but I don't think we did. And I think the idea was that we would have liaisons to the HRA EDA.
Yep.
And so now we're in that next step of, well, what does that look like going forward? What do we expect the HRA EDA board to do? What do we expect the county board to do?
Yeah, I was just wondering what was being discussed at that committee level as far as, is the economic development getting anywhere close to discussing projects or, that's what I was kind of thinking about.
Yeah.
They're
So
not either.
I think there is ready as Leslie's still on the call. So I feel like Leslie and I are at the waterworks and we have these valves
Yeah.
and we go, should this tax abatement request go to the HRA EDA or to the county board? Should this idea go? And so I hope we're making good decisions, right? Because you're seeing where things are going, but we're looking for some long-term direction and expectation. And I think the HRA EDA board members need to be a part of that conversation, right?
So I have a question. I stayed at a VRBO out in Colorado, and one of the things that I even took a picture of it, but they have to be licensed by, I'm assuming it was a city out there, but if they're licensed by the county to have a rental facility, that's one way that we could keep track of things, which would help with the assessment process so that they get the right classifications and just making sure that they're up to code with what they should be. Is that something that we've thought about doing? I'm looking at both of you at the same time. It's nice, Leslie's behind you.
So I'll talk first if you want, Leslie. All right. So I think Adams County is a special case, right? Because Colorado has these unigovernments where the city and the county are merged. And so I think Adams County is one of those, the city and county of Denver, I think Jefferson County, they have a lot of, they're just different. So where a city might do it here, if a county does it there, it's not because the city's not, it's because the city and the county are one government. So they're just the first caveat. The second thing is, in all the discussion we've had on the short-term rentals, there's zero interest or ability to regulate it using zoning at the county level because we don't have countywide zoning and we're not going to do countywide zoning particularly for this purpose. So it would come through a rental registration if we were interested. And the HRA EDA board talked a little bit about that. Pine City has a rental registration. Doesn't matter if it's a short-term or a long-term, they just have a rental registration. In Minnesota, it's very common that college towns have a rental registration because they have such a high percentage of rental units. So is that enough tee up, Leslie, is to anything you can add to that?
Yeah, and all I was going to mention is that the county does require the registration. It's not really a registration. It's to get a conditional use permit if it's in the shoreline, unless it's in a jurisdiction that does their own shoreline stuff. So I know having conversations with Caleb about it was the conditional use permit process feels a little cumbersome and expensive. So having it be a rental registration makes more administrative sense because again, when you start adding ordinances and regulations, you have to think about staff capacity to do it and what's the cost to implement it. And a rental registration could just be an administrative permit that gets submitted. You make a list of properties and then you go out and inspect them once every 3 years. That's what the city of Pine City does, to make sure that there's smoke detectors, running water, adequate parking, and that it's a safe unit. That's kind of like the basis, or where you jump off from. But there isn't anything countywide because, like David said, there isn't countywide zoning. So the shoreland is the only really regulated area for short-term rentals.
Okay, well, you have thought about it. Good job.
And I think it should be, if we ever go there, it should be cheap, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like $1. Because if someone is renting their house to like help pay their taxes or something for a week or 2 a year, big deal, right?
Yeah, and that it should be cheap because you just can't pay for much with what you could charge, right? A reasonable permit fee is not gonna be $5,000, right? A reasonable permit fee is very small.
Because I think what I learned from is most of the time, there's more of a benefit to them than as far as the housing side, right? As a takeaway. Is that right, Leslie?
I think there is a benefit because it provides homeowners a source of revenue for their home, should it be a lake property or something that, has a little bit more expensive taxes, or it provides a revenue for them to make improvements to their home, which is always, that's kind of been my bread and butter my whole career. Is I do believe properties should be maintained to kind of keep them solidified. And when those properties change hands, then they're sold and more people buy them up, then you have healthy, safe properties to purchase.
Yep. And then you stay in one, right? And you spend some money in the area because you show up there. So that benefits there too.
Right, it is a big benefit.
Yeah, the few times I've heard Leslie's presentation, most of the feedback has been neutral or positive, right? It has not generated negative feedback. Leslie, I haven't gone to all of them, right? I don't know if you have, if your experience, if you've gotten, if there are concerns that you've heard or what those might be.
I have heard a little.
She needs better broadband.
I'll write a letter of support.
Doesn't she?
Is renting out and their parties going on, then you wouldn't like them. But you can regulate that through Vrbo and Airbnb and local rent registrations.
Leslie, you cut out on us there a little bit. Do you want to kind of start over?
Sure. I'm going to shut my video off. I have people here that use my bandwidth sometimes. I have heard some negative feedback, but it's usually from people who live very close proximity to short-term rentals or have had that 1 or 2 negative experiences with a robust party next door due to those rentals. Did that come through?
Yep.
Just one more tidbit. I was listening to a radio story the other day, and they have done some research and found that 25% of the VRBO website rentals are for a month or more, which was really, maybe counterintuitive, but they're thinking that whoever did the research was thinking that this might be a substitute for corporate housing, that people move, your corporation moves you to, say, Adams County, and then they need to find you a place to stay until you can find permanent housing. And so these short-term rentals are that place because they provide you better amenities than a hotel might if you're going to live there for several months.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Let's move on to Central Regional EMS.
I'll be quick there. So we had our meeting last Friday. I'll jump right to the nuts and bolts. So it's pretty much standard meeting, going through our seatbelt stuff and things like that. Then we got to the opioid funding. And I explained what we had in, I think I told you guys the last meeting that I asked the sheriff's office, and I think July 7th was a snapshot. We were at 29 ODs in the county and 2 deaths of that. So then when we got around to that, for the last quarter, there was 135 doses used out of our EMS pool of the naloxone. But then just in July, it went through 200 doses. So there's a huge uptick.
Wow,
And
that is huge.
which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So our Dr. Mari Thomas is retiring. So we met who's gonna be the new medical director for the EMS group. So that was pretty much the gist of the meeting. Oh, I did have extensive discussion on, I think I talked to you before about the opioid dollars coming, you know, they were thinking of it as a fund source, and we went back to the counties, and I already told them where we stood, but they come back around and you know, and I said, well, it's dedicated to go to public health, or I mean, it's assigned to go to public health, and that the main purpose of it is for prevention and education. That, you know, Reese has us pretty well up to speed on all that stuff. So, and the feedback from, there was only one other county that said, hey, we'll figure something out and stick some, we don't know a dollar amount yet, but everybody else had kind of the same feedback we had. So it was kind of nice, because there's a lot of people that have their hand out for those dollars, you know, and public health is going to make good use of it. And I think this should be funded differently, like it always has been. You know, I'm not just trying to do a cash grab on this. And if this doesn't work with the funding they have, this system for the 11 counties, then something has to be fixed, right? Why prop it up like that? So, and that's it, pretty much.
Okay. The National Associations of Counties.
I'm not going to be so short. So one of the things that we did is there's the thing called Test It, which it's restarted, and it's for broadband, and it's going to show that our broadband is horrible. So if one of the things that they brought up is if our human services department, when they're out and about all over the place, if they can keep doing their testing to see where their broadband is in certain areas of the county, or your highway department or your sheriff's officers, deputies, wherever people are, if we can start doing that, Test It, and just seeing where our broadband really is, so that we can give and it goes right to the FCC, so they can get a good idea as to what our needs are and why we have such a big
Haven't we
need.
been doing that for the last?
Yeah, but there was some issues with it, so now it's supposed to, they've done more updates, and it's supposed to be better.
Oh, okay.
So they're asking again that we get that out there and have people do it. There was a lot on cyber risks, ransomware. There's New Frontier in cybersecurity and Zero Trust security. So some of those might be some of the, is that the insurance companies, or is that just the security places where they're? Okay, yeah. One of the other things that they talked about a lot was mental health. We have a lot of issues with mental health, and it's really increased, especially with COVID and the kids having to be home and not being able to be with people, and the mental health that's coming out with adults, and the fact that a lot of people aren't seeking services. So on that note, I went and I toured, I emailed Becky and I asked if she was interested in family resource centers, and she said yes. And so I did go on the tour and toured 2 of them. And it's amazing the services that they get. If you have substance abuse, you can get the help that you need there. So the family can go there and get the help that they need for substance abuse. Or if somebody doesn't have a GED and they need help so that they can get a job, it's helping that. So that's going to help your family down the road. They did clothing where, you know, if we had somebody that went and got their GED and they were going to go and apply for jobs, or just got help with math so that they could apply for a job, because math seems to be the one that everybody fails at. Everybody has a hard time with math. You know, maybe we can give them some vouchers or have some suits for them to go out and do job interviews, you know, just to help these families so that the families can become more sustainable and help themselves more. It sounds like for every $1 that you spend on this, you can save anywhere from $3 to $5 in your services, in your probation, your attorney fees, your sheriff's fees, those types of things, because you're helping the families become stronger. So with your permission, we'd like to be looking more into that. And I know Becky is looking into it. Scott County is doing it right now, and they do it at libraries. So, and I just gave Becky all the information on that. At this library today, you can go and you can get legal aid services, or at this library tomorrow, you can go here and you can get information on helping you succeed and get your GED and, or training for a job or whatever it is that you need, or you can get counseling for your substance abuse at this place. But, you know, we have legal aid services here, but a lot of people don't want to go to the courts to get that free service because it's a bad image. They don't want that image. So it kind of gives you those outlets, and they said that the use is more. So we did talk about it a little bit at the school meeting, and about maybe even using the schools on this just to keep costs down. And I did talk to the library, Carla, director, and she's interested in looking more into it also to see if it's something that we could utilize the libraries on. But if we could help our families to improve, we're going to help our county, and it'll be a win-win. I got put on the Rural Action Board, which was, I know you don't even have to say anything, they just put you on it. But it was really interesting. They were talking a lot about different ways to help the rural communities, which we are, to survive better and to get up. So that was an interesting meeting. We did also talk about, I sat in on a meeting on how to get and retain employees. And so they talked a lot about well-being. You know, I think that that's a big thing, is the well-being of the employees and just making sure that. Pardon?
A stay interview.
Yeah.
Big thing though.
Yeah, which might not be a bad idea. So, you know, they talked compensation, healthcare benefits, and retirement benefits are the biggest things right now. Also talking about the opioid solutions, and one of them was doing a peer mentoring. So if you have an opioid abuse, or if you've been, you know, I think they do that a lot with alcoholism, but with this 107,000 lives have been lost. And so their website, or 107,000 lives have been lost due to opioids through nationwide. And so they're just talking about different ways to fix that. And one of that was the Family Resource Center. I think that was it that I took notes on anyway.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add on to what Terry was saying about the family resource centers and our schools. So we have our next meeting with the school district scheduled for October 26th. And the topic is going to be family resource centers, and Becky is going to be coordinating that presentation. And so put the 26th on your calendar so that we can keep that initiative moving.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thanks for going to that. I don't know if we've had anybody go to a NACO in as long as I've been here.
It
So,
was really interesting. It was busy,
yeah,
but it was really lots of good information.
was it hot there?
No,
Oh, okay. I was a little further south. and
because
it
I
was
went to the
hot.
mountains.
It's 113 where I was.
Ouch, yeah. Well, next year they want to have it in Texas. You can go to that one.
Yeah.
No.
Anything on other?
The only other I have is, I think I would just mention to us, is like when we go to our committees, I think we should start thinking about evaluating our committees like Rush Line or things like that. I don't know where you're gonna go, but just so when we come to our meetings and stuff, we can, well, at some point we can
Side
discuss that, see. And it doesn't mean we have too many. We can maybe add something that might be better and get rid of one that's not doing anything, or, you know, whatever. I'm trying to do that in myself, so I can provide feedback at some point.
I do have another two. I've been to 2 library meetings this month for budget. And I sent you the number, was it 0.89% is what they're looking at an increase for Pine County, which were the lowest. Isanti and Chisago, I think they were like at 10 and 11% increases. But they are looking at going out to Bjorkland and having what they're checking to see is if they can bring their lower employees and give them more and give their higher employees less, because it's our lower employees that are really struggling, and our higher employees, you know, not that they don't struggle, but they have more. So that's what they're looking at right now. And then that may make a difference in it also. But here I actually brought the wrong numbers. So that's kind of what they're looking into, but our increase is going to be, we're the smallest increase in the library system.
So that would be about 30 grand.
Total, yeah, a little over 30.
Yeah. How, I know the one thing we always battled over with them was the reserves, because they do have a healthy
They
reserve.
brought them down.
Okay.
So we did that last
And
year.
that was, okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Is there anything other? Okay, take a peek at upcoming meetings and yeah, that should be good and we'll declare the meeting